I've been having a really crappy week, and watching a movie as crazy as this usually just breaks me out of my funk. So I've had a bad week, and I wasn't really planning to record and make a video, but I've been getting a lot of good buzz on this movie called Obsession, and I decided why not? Because sometimes when I'm in a really bad mood, for some weird reason, a very intense psychological horror film. Strangely, these type of movies just seem to like snap me out of my funk. And I can only imagine maybe it has something to do with the fact that I have a film where I can actually just pour my emotions to, or just, I can't put it in words, but I guess the only thing that comes to mind is just horror movies tend to like just get a reaction out of me that helps me snap out of it. And that's what Obsession is all about. Based on the trailers alone, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. The whole premise of this film is a guy named Baron Bailey, also known as Bear, played by Michael Johnston. He has a crush on a girl named Nikki, played by Indy Neverete. I hope I pronounced it right. So, yeah, Nikki. He's had a crush on her, and he's known her since childhood, and he's been planning to confess his love to her. Before that, he goes to a store to buy a crystal as a gift to cheer her up. He finds something called a one wish willow, in where you make a wish, then break the stick in half. Then later on, after a night out with Nikki and their two other friends named Ian and Sarah, they had fun, chatted, and once they were done, Bear drove Nikki home. He attempts to confess his feelings to her, but he had so much insecurity that he ended up chickening out. And instead of talking to her about his feelings, he ends up using the one willow wish for himself and wish for her to love him more than anyone in the world. It's pretty much the monkey's paw. Be careful what you wish for, because when you get it, you may not like what you get. And that was the case with Bear and him wishing for Nikki to fall madly in love with him. And the kind of love Nikki presents is the type that leads to obsession. Wink, wink. Which is pushed to the absolute extreme where she makes everyone uncomfortable, especially Bear, the dude who wished for this. Oh, by the way, hey, I hope you're doing all right. I'm Robert, and talking about movies like Obsession is one of the reasons why I wanted to make this channel, because I wanted a space where I can just share my thoughts on a film I watched. So if you're interested to, hold on a second. The algo, the algo. Wait one moment here. Like, sub, share. My apologies to everyone on the other side of the screen. But with this channel, I got a dog named Thialgo Rhythm. He's a good boy, but it's hard to get his attention sometimes. And the only way he'll work with me is when viewers find joy in this video and click to like it as well as comment on it. Nowadays, the algorithm seems to be interested in likes and comments more than usual. If you enjoy this video after viewing, then I greatly appreciate you subscribe to the channel and share this video with others. Because with this new channel, all I want to do is create content for you and make sure the algorithm is happy. So the movie Obsession was produced by Blumhouse and directed, written, and edited by Curry Barker. And this is his second film. And boy, this director hit a home run. I mean, because this movie, wow. All I gotta say is wow. It's it is a very intense emotional roller coaster. Like I was in the edge of my seat, feeling uncomfortable when Nikki freaks out, anticipating the worst thing to happen when the music sets the mood, or even when the movie feels too quiet. Boo. So let's just jump straight to the strengths of this film. The biggest strength that this film has going for is its cinematography, like how it tells a story visually. I feel like probably the best parts of this film was how they chose to use the lighting. For example, there were scenes where Nikki was being backlit and it creates her whole body look like a complete shadow. The ambient light will reflect back to the white of her eyes to a point where all you see are these little dots and little faint shadings of her face showing the slightest of expressions. And that creates a very ominous presence that really made me feel uncomfortable preparing for a jump scare. And that's when I had the most fun watching this film. But not only that, there were moments where Nikki exaggerates her facial expressions, then only to move awkwardly while walking backwards. and how these expressions were presented with the lighting and the movements exaggerated with speeding the film up just presents her as some kind of demon at times, which made Nikki appear more frightening as the film moves on. Granted, it was predictable on what was going to happen in the end, especially around the third act. But the thing that just constantly made Nikki unpredictable was how manic she was, in where it would be normal one moment, only to be just so incredibly emotional. Will she be screaming, or at times will she just be like crying, or you can't even tell what she's going to act at any moment. Then there were other times where I was at the edge of my seat when she is not in the scene, to a point where I'm just expecting her to jump out of nowhere, just do something completely unpredictable. I was just expecting the worst. And sometimes they do happen and then sometimes they don't. But that was the thing that just really kept me invested in this film. So, regardless of how great the strengths are, there are some weaknesses to the film. For example, I wish that I wish I would have liked to have seen more of Nikki before Bear affected her with the wish, because we didn't get enough of her and all of it was from Bear's point of view. And perhaps that's what the director intended, but I would have liked to see more of her so I could be a little bit more invested on who this person was before she got mind controlled to be this obsessive, needy person to Bear. Quite simply, I wanted more of the real Nikki so that I, as a viewer, can be more empathetic of her struggle of becoming this person that goes against her own personality. So, as a horror film, it landed in every spot I wanted to land. It got a lot of reaction out of me. So, with all that said, I give this movie a rating of worth your time. I really enjoyed this movie from beginning to end. The best part for me was all the reactions my theater was getting, because there were moments where I won't say it's a comedy, but there were laughs because of how intense and extreme Nikki was reacting throughout the film. My favorite part about the film was the moment the movie ended, I stood up and a bunch of guys just walked past me and they saw the smile I had, and all they could do is just burst into laughter. So ultimately, this movie made my day, and that's why I believe this movie is worth your time. All right, we're going to be talking about spoilers. All right. So just going to throw it out there. I'm going to be talking about spoilers, and you have been warned. So here's what happened. Once the movie reached the third act, one of Bear's friends, Ian, invited him to a party that Nikki was not invited to. And Nikki overreacted and started to guilt trip Bear to take her there anyway. Sarah was also in the party, and later, Bear played a game in where he had to kiss Sarah. And Nikki didn't take that very well. She made everyone uncomfortable. Then suddenly she started hitting her own head with a cup. Soon after, Bear took her to the hospital, and after she got a checkup, they later went back home and to bed. Bear later realized the real Nikki, the version of her before Bear made the wish, can talk whenever she's asleep. She begs Bear to permanently delete her life, and Bear refuses. Instead, Bear walks out to talk to Sarah. They chat a bit, and Sarah admits to Bear she has a crush on him. And before they continue chatting, Nikki comes in and permanently deletes Sarah's life in front of Bear by smashing her face with a brick repeatedly to a point where her face was nothing but mush. Nikki says she'll take care of the body. Bear finally had enough, and he goes to the store where he got the One Willow Wish in the first place and buys a few, hoping he can undo the wish he made for Nikki to love him. But he can't seem to break the stick and realizes he can only make one wish. So he goes to see Ian, begging him to use the One Willow Wish to undo the wish he made on Nikki. But instead, Ian decides to use the One Willow Wish to wish for $1 billion. And I gotta admit, that's not a bad wish. But since this film was all about, like making wishes that you'll soon regret, I would have liked it if they wrote some little moment where you realize that even Ian's wish has some consequences. So Bear goes back home only to find Sarah's headless body on a chair. Now, at this point, seeing how crazy Nikki has been going, I was kind of expecting the worst, since throughout the film, it's been implied that there's something between Bear and Sarah, and Nikki knew this. And maybe in her obsessive mind, she could have Bear love her and Sarah at the same time by Nikki wearing Sarah as a skin suit. I would hope the idea crossed the director's mind, but with this film being a Blumhouse production, maybe they didn't have the budget for that. But in any case, Bear gives Nikki the one willow wish, hoping she would use it to set herself free. Nikki freaks out and, while holding a gun, demands Bear to confess his love to her. Then suddenly, Ian knocks the door, and with the gun, Nikki permanently deletes his life. By this point, Bear is at his last straw. He goes to the bathroom, and while he was there, Nikki takes that one willow wish and makes a wish for Bear to love her as much as she loves him. And the problem was for me was I actually had to look that up because I never picked that up from my first viewing of the movie. And I wish it was a little bit more clear when I watched it. But while that was happening, Bear took some pills to attempt to permanently self delete himself. And even though he tries to force the pills out of his stomach, he was too late. Fun fact, Bear was never meant to force the pills out of his system. This was an idea suggested by Michael Johnston, the actor playing Bear. He had a talk with Curry Barker and stated that he didn't feel Bear would not be brave enough to sacrifice himself to free Nikki from the wish and rather live with the situation he's under, no matter how dire it was. So yeah, Bear walks up to Nikki and they start kissing. Then suddenly the pills in Bear's body start to set in and shuts down Bear's life. While that's happening, Nikki cries, seeing Bear was no more. She takes the gun, aims it at herself, and the moment she was going to attempt to permanently self delete herself, all of a sudden, within the blink of an eye, we finally get to see the real Nikki break out of this wish. And you see her react to everything that's happened. And she begins to cry. Then the camera moves away from her and the credits start rolling. And throughout the credits, all you hear is her crying over everything that's just happened to her. So here's another fun fact. The other plan was to actually have Nikki go through her attempt to permanently self-delete herself, and that's how the movie was going to end, that everyone is gone. But Barker had Indy Navarrete act out the scene where she is free from the control of the wish, and Indy's acting was enough to convince Barker and his team to use that scene as the ending of this film. It was all in Indy's acting that made the decision, and I felt that this ending made the film work as a whole because ultimately Nikki, the real Nikki, is a victim of this movie and she was never in control throughout the entire situation. So I don't know what will happen to her, but I felt a sense of closure because at least she was free of the wish that Bear made. But those are just my thoughts on the film. I would love to hear what yours are. So comment down below on whatever your thoughts about this movie. I would love to hear what you all have to say. And even if you didn't see the film and watched it all the way to the spoilers, I still recommend you check it out. It's a great film and it's a fun movie experience to share with everyone. So yeah, highly recommend Obsession. And if you watched all the way to the end, then thank you for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, then go ahead and click on that like button. I'm sure that'll make my pet dog, the Algo, happy. If you're wondering about how I rate movies besides the rating of worth your time, then check this video on screen. I go into detail on my rating system, like, woo, life is beautiful, waste of time, and why am I punishing myself? And I plan to do more with this channel. And if you're interested, then subscribe to this channel so you can be updated on what I have going forward. In any case, take care, find joy in the simple things in life, and be well.